One of the common things that I hear when someone tells me that they've had an affair is, I never meant for this to happen. And I actually believe them because most of the people that I work with are not actually trying to leave their relationship. They're not trying to hurt their partner. They're usually trying to feel something again in the relationship that matters really deeply to them. And so today I want to talk about one of the most common patterns I see, something called the unmet needs affair, and what it really means about your relationship. There are many different types of affairs, but this one shows up over and over in my work. And it usually starts really quietly. It doesn't start with a big decision. It's not with someone waking up one day and thinking, I'm going to have an affair. But it starts with disconnection, feeling lonely, feeling unseen, feeling like something important hasn't been talked about for a really long time. And most people don't even realize how much this is affecting them until someone else comes along and suddenly they feel understood in a way that they haven't felt in years. Sometimes it's emotional closeness. Sometimes it's sex. Sometimes it's feeling admired or appreciated. But here's where it gets tricky. The focus narrows to that one missing piece, and then over time, that piece starts to feel huge, even if there are many other parts of the relationship that are still good. And without meaning to, the person begins to overlook everything that is working and become consumed by the one thing that isn't. This really is the trap. Then someone new comes along and meets that need, and it feels electrifying. And this intensity, it's not just emotional, it's actually biological, because falling in love floods your brain with chemicals that make everything feel urgent and exciting. It's actually very similar to the effect of a drug. So people often tell me, I feel like I wasn't thinking clearly, and honestly, they weren't. But an affair exists in a kind of bubble. It doesn't include bills, parenting, stress, or the everyday realities that long-term relationships go through. So it can look really like this vibrant, colorful experience next to this normal, sometimes boring reality of everyday life. But that doesn't mean that the new person is the answer to everything, right? It just means that the situation is incomplete. The affair is not a real relationship. One of the most painful parts of discovering an affair is the meaning that people make about it. You might think, if they loved me, they wouldn't have done this, or was our whole relationship a lie, or, if I'd just been different, this wouldn't have happened. But most unmet need affairs grow slowly. They often say more about how both partners learn to cope with the distance and the pain than they do about whether the love was ever real. And this doesn't excuse the betrayal. The hurt and the shock are very real, but it does mean that the story is actually way more complicated than that. Many couples discover that underneath the affair were patterns that neither of them fully understood. There were conversations that felt too scary to have, differences in needs that were never clearly named, and ways of shutting down or protecting themselves that pushed each other further and further apart. Or they may have been in the same conflict patterns over and over and still feeling unheard and unseen. For some couples, the discovery of an affair can be the first time that they're really seeing and hearing each other in a very long time, even though this is incredibly difficult. The question that I hear most is, can we actually recover from this? And there isn't one answer for every couple. Some relationships do end, but I've also seen relationships become more honest, more connected, and intentional than they ever were before. Healing becomes possible when there's accountability, transparency, and a willingness from both partners to look at what led them here. So if you're in this place right now, I want you to know that you're not alone. This happens more often than people think and talk about, and you don't have to have all of the answers today. In my next video, I'm going to talk specifically to the betrayed partner and explain why your brain feels completely out of control after you've discovered an affair, because understanding that can bring a lot of relief to you and your situation. And so if that's where you are, and if you found this video helpful, then that's a great one to watch.